Hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Helmi Zulkawi, the Managing Director of Helm Marine. Welcome to the Offshore Site Investigation 2021. I have quite an interesting topic to talk about this morning, which is in the form of a question. Is the offshore geotechnical investigation using the heave compensated drill a dying industry? Before I offer my answer to that question, let me first give you an overview of the industry. The offshore geotechnical investigation is about drilling, sampling, and carrying out in situ testing to collect subsoil information, which would then be used to design structures such as pile foundation platform, jack-up rig, pipelines, and other associated structures that are founded in the seabed. There are not many players globally. As you know, this is a very specialized area of offshore engineering that has a high barrier of entry due to the relatively major investment required to acquire the vessel and specialized drilling and testing equipment. Vessels are either dynamic positioning or four-point mooring. And for working in an offshore environment, the drill rigs are heave compensated. This is an example of a geotechnical drilling vessel. Typically, it is 60 to 70 meter long or slightly longer. The drilling rig is around 24 meters high and it comes with a 3 to 4 of heave compensated system. Here are the major offshore geotechnical investigation players that operate surface drilling system globally. This is a global map showing where the major offshore geotechnical players are focusing. The main industry sectors that require the service of offshore geotechnical investigations are the oil and gas and offshore wind. The oil and gas exploration is about searching for oil and gas using jack-up rigs. And the development is about the oil and gas extraction using a fixed drilling platform. The offshore wind farm development is about the construction of wind turbines, and it is a fast-growing industry. Other offshore sectors that involve similar geotechnical drilling are the offshore hydrate exploration and mineral mining. But I don't wish to elaborate on this as it will be covered by other speakers on these specialized subjects. Other sectors that would require marine geotechnical investigation are the larger civil engineering structures such as bridges and marine power plants. These sectors are traditionally served by jack-up pontoon or floating platforms using the onshore geotech technologies such as the Standard Penetration Test or SPT. As more and more clients are requesting for CPT data and higher quality sampling and in-situ testing, the geotechnical drilling vessels are now the preferred mode as water depth is getting deeper and more boreholes are to be conducted. The water depth can vary from just a few meters to over 50 meters. Now let us have a quick analysis on the offshore oil and gas. Let me begin with the forecast of the oil and gas jack-up demand for the year 2019 to 2021. For the overall drilling rigs, the average demand was 473 units in 2019, and it is expected to reach an average demand of 550 units in 2021. And the average jack-up demand, which matters the most to the offshore geotechnical business, It was 345 units in 2019, and it is expected to rise to almost 400 units in 2021. The licensing activity is another good indicator of the health check of the oil and gas industry. In 2020, there were more than 50 licensing rounds globally. In the 2019, the numbers were also more or less the same. The licensing activities are very active in Africa, followed by countries in Southeast Asia, such as Myanmar, Timor-Leste, Thailand, and Bangladesh. And in the Americas, countries like Guyana, Barbados, and Panama were also active in licensing rounds in 2020. So what drives the offshore drilling market? As the demand for oil and gas is increasing, there's a need to explore and produce new oil and gas reservoirs. Existing reservoirs have started to mature or have depleted. New oil and gas wells are being drilled in countries that have not been major producers. Offshore oil and gas reservoirs are larger than onshore reservoirs, and the production life of offshore wells are higher than that of onshore wells, so companies are shifting towards offshore E&P activities. The rise in fuel consumption from developing economies such as China and India, the demand for natural gas are expected to propel dimming the forecast period. The increasing demand for oil and natural gas will drive the growth of E&P activities of oil and gas. Thus, the rise in demand for the oil and gas will increase drilling activities in offshore locations, thereby driving the global offshore drilling market. Let me go then to the offshore wind farm. The global offshore wind capacity may increase by 15 times and attract around $1 trillion of cumulative investment by 2040. The above are driven by falling costs, favorable government policies, and rapid technological progress, which allow the wind turbines to be built bigger and can be installed much deeper water. The leading countries in offshore wind power application are the UK and Germany in Europe and China, and they will continue to increase installation capacity and occupy a certain market position. The emerging markets for the wind farm developments are in the Far East and in France and Europe, which will help increase the installation capacity. Now we have come to the questions of whether or not the offshore geotechnical investigation using a HEAF compensated drill a dying industry. My answer to that is no, or at least not yet. I believe that the offshore site investigations will continue to be relevant and will remain alive for as long as offshore activities involving the construction of structures are still required to sustain the offshore development. Then why have there been a continued lack of site investigation activities in the last many years? My take is that the recent past and current slowdown were caused by the oil and gas crisis that started in 2014-2015, where there was an oversupply of oil following the overdrilling in the USA and the failure of the OPEC to reach an agreement on the production cut. And when the oil and gas was just about to recover, the world is then hit with the pandemic COVID-19, which then delayed the industry recovery due to travel restrictions and hence a drop in the oil demand. And finally, we must not forget that oil and gas is a cyclical industry. And here is the description of the cyclical nature of the industry. I guess the industry now is still at stage 1, where there's a lack of oil demand and yet excess supply, resulting in the low oil price. As the demand increases with the economic recovery, plus probably the introduction of the vaccine, the price will rise. The price are now just going to be already above US $60 barrel. And when the price is good and stable, the investment will be ramped up with the new oil play and the emergence of new oil companies. At stage 4, the production of oil will increase in line with growth in demand. However, as soon as the supply exceeds demand, prices will collapse and capital expenditure slashed. The end result will be excess supply and obviously lower prices. So where are the potential geotechnical projects for the offshore wind farm? This is actually a tricky question. As an industry player myself, I will have to control the level of market intelligence that I can release, since some of you in the audience are probably our competitors. So I will try my best to give a general idea on where the market opportunities could be. I can say that Europe is still offering opportunities for geotechnical investigation companies, especially in the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands and France. In the USA, they are aggressively developing offshore wind farms, especially in the East Coast. The market there is currently served by 6 DP2 vessels, provided by the likes of Fugro, Zulkawi, Horizon, and also Guardline. Taiwan is still an interesting market with more opportunities to come. Korea and Japan will be like Taiwan a couple years ago, and the offshore geotechnical activities there are expected to be in great demand over the next 3 to 5 years. Elsewhere in Asia, other potential activities being offered could be in Vietnam, India, and the Philippines. India has been quite active with onshore wind turbine installation, and they are now moving offshore, especially the southwest coast. The Philippines is developing 2 pilot wind farm projects in the north and central part of the country. I have decided to just show you select internet news relating to the wind farm activities. Fugro, for example, has secured offshore geotechnical projects at Netherlands' largest offshore wind farm, and it was reported that they will be busy drilling in the area for the most part of this year. The next news is about Zulkawi providing 3 DP2 geotechnical drilling vessels to support the wind farm development in the east coast of the United States. And finally, this is news about how the Asia Pacific is expected to become the largest offshore wind power market by 2030. And as it was reported here, that the top 5 markets over the next decades will be China, Taiwan, South Korea, Japan, and Vietnam. Now let's turn into the potential projects for oil and gas. For Southeast Asia, Malaysia, I think, can still provide opportunities for offshore geotechnical players, as there will be a steady number of rigs until 2023 at least. Indonesia is still targeting to produce 1 million barrels of oil per day in 2030. This will obviously create opportunities. Thailand has announced a massive capex and opex this year. Myanmar is reported to have allocated some USD 1 billion for its upstream expenditure by 2023. And there will be similar opportunities in the Middle East and Africa. potential will be in Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, and possibly Iran as well. In Africa, particularly Nigeria and Angola in the west, and Tanzania, Mozambique in the east, areas of potential are there as well. So what are the potential offshore geotechnical civil engineering works? Again, I have to be cautious about releasing the market intelligence. Suffice to say that there are probably 3 major projects in the region, namely, number one, the Manila Bay Bridge in the Philippines. They will probably have awarded the survey and geotechnical contracts by now. The number 2, the Dato Bridge in Indonesia, connecting Flores and Adunara Islands. Last and but not least, the ship-to-ship hub projects in Johor, which can offer substantial SI works for the offshore geotechnical contractors. So what are the challenges faced by the offshore geotechnical contractors right now? Number one is obviously on how to manage the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and the oil crisis. Then how to cope with the cyclical trend of the industry. Clients are demanding for higher health and safety and environment, and they are now asking for higher specs and newer vessels. Countries which offer market opportunities tend to introduce protective policies to help their local industry players. And finally, how to attract experienced and dedicated professionals. So what can an offshore geotechnical investigation player do in order to remain relevant in the industry? It may sound cliche, but one of the most important things is to make the right marketing efforts. For example, many of the clients in the offshore wind farm are coming from the onshore background. They tend to impose onshore requirements offshore, which sometimes may not be practical. Hence, we need to educate and convince them to adopt offshore drilling and soil testing systems such as downhole CPT and do away with the SPT, for example. Some of the areas of the wind farm projects are located in a strong wind or strong tropic location. Hence, there's a need to invest in a suitable vessel that can handle such demanding environmental conditions. And some of the wind turbines, for example, are to be built over soil with seismically related foundation. So we need to come up with improved drilling and soil testing equipment. And offshore geotechnical contractors will need to understand fully the protective policies adopted by countries offering the market opportunities and find a way to get around them. I'm sure there will be many coping strategies that can be adopted by the offshore geotechnical investigation players to overcome the challenges as mentioned. But here are just a few for consideration. First and foremost, we need to balance the service sector we should be in. The offshore geotechnical contractors should not just focus to service the oil and gas only or the wind energy sector only. It has to be balanced. Fugro, for example, is reducing its focus on the oil and gas industry. In its 2020 annual report, they have indicated that 66% of the services they provide are now in the non-oil business. Next is to consider creating a creative partnership with the ship owner or operators. Many players now prefer to charter vessel long-term rather than to own one. As more vessels are becoming available and many of them are generally aging, striking a good partnership with ship owners can be a good strategy. Another strategy that has been adopted by a few players is by building a mobile drilling rig, which can be mounted over a locally flagged vessel. This is simply to overcome the cabotage rules. And also, in order to penetrate the protective market, one can even consider to reflag reflag the vessel into respective countries over the region. This could apply to countries such as Taiwan, Indonesia, and even Malaysia. Well, I've come to the end of my presentation, and I hope I have fairly answered the question given the limited time that I have. And I trust the tips and information I've offered will be insightful, useful to those already in the industry and those who are looking to venture into the business of offshore geotechnical investigation. Thank you for watching and listening, and bye-bye.